Captain Marvel has finally hit theaters around the world. And in spite of what those weird Rotten Tomatoes reviewers have been saying about it, it's pretty good, you guys. Carol Danvers is, as expected, an absolute beast. And it's going to be pretty amazing seeing her in the mix with the other MCU heroes in Avengers Endgame. Speaking of which, her movie does have a number of obvious connections and potential connections to the fourth Avengers offering. And in this video, we'll be telling you what they are. And please note, there will definitely be major Captain Marvel spoilers ahead. So if you don't want the movie ruined for you, stop the video immediately. At its heart, Captain Marvel is a story of self-discovery, or to be more specific, a story of self-rediscovery. Carol Danvers was a highly skilled United States Air Force pilot who was involved in a crash back in 1989, along with defect Kree scientist Mar-Vell, which resulted in an explosion that exposed her to the energies of the Tesseract. Now, Mar-Vell was working alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. on Project Pegasus, specifically using the Tesseract to create a device called the Lightspeed engine that was intended to end the Kree-Skrull War and allow the Skrulls to relocate far from her own species. As a result of the crash, Danvers absorbed the Tesseract's power, but also lost her memories, at which point she was taken to the Kree's home planet by Yon-Rogg and indoctrinated to believe that they were, for want of a better term, the good guys. But her subsequent dreams, which contained flashes of her life on Earth, would haunt her, making her want to learn more about her past. And when she inadvertently ended up back on Earth, or C-53 as it's known to the Kree, following a space-based tussle with some Skrulls, she seized the opportunity to find out more about herself. Of course, this brought her into contact with a bunch of characters and concepts that link her to the Avengers. Notably, two of the first people she came into contact with were S.H.I.E.L.D. agents Nick Fury and Phil Coulson, both of whom were looking a lot more fresh-faced than we're used to. Now, we know Fury is currently dead, having turned to dust when Thanos executed the decimation, and that Coulson has been kept separate to the Avengers movies since he was killed in the first one, in spite of the fact that he was resurrected to star in TV's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But given that time travel is expected to play a major part in Avengers Endgame, both of those characters may appear in it. In turn, they could certainly be helping to bridge the gap between the two movies. But it's also worth pointing out that Project Pegasus could become relevant again going forward in the MCU. We've already mentioned that Mar-Vell was working on the project in Captain Marvel, but you may remember it was also still an ongoing S.H.I.E.L.D. assignment in the first Avengers movie, when the likes of Eric Selvig were studying the Tesseract. A quick glimpse of a sign with its name on it in a S.H.I.E.L.D. base confirmed as much. Given that Carol Danvers' powers were imbued in her by the Tesseract's energy, Project Pegasus could reopen in Avengers Endgame in order to study Danvers to unearth information that could be key in defeating Thanos. Thanos is, of course, still in possession of the Space Stone that was housed inside the Tesseract, as well as the other 5 Infinity Stones, so learning more about Danvers' powers could be important. It's also worth going back to the Lightspeed engine that we've just mentioned. Samuel L. Jackson has publicly stated that Carol Danvers is able to time travel under her own power. We didn't see any evidence of that in Captain Marvel, but more than 2 decades will have passed by the time she appears in Avengers Endgame. So there's every chance she could have refined her powers and indeed unlocked more of them. And Jackson may well be proven right in regards to his time travel assertion. In spite of all the quantum realm theories, maybe the MCU's heroes travel through time courtesy of Danvers. Real-world physicists have theorized that if humans are to discover time travel, it could be possible by traveling faster than the speed of light. Given that the Lightspeed engine was created using the Tesseract, and given that Carol Danvers' powers come from that Tesseract, maybe she'll be able to travel faster than light once she hones her powers. And that could be the way in which she travels through time. After all, other Marvel characters like the Silver Surfer, and indeed DC characters like Wally West, can traverse time by simply moving faster than light. It's certainly food for thought, if nothing else. Another prominent feature of the movie that obviously links it to Avengers Endgame is Nick Fury's pager. Given that Captain Marvel was set in the 1990s, the pager in its original form was merely a bog-standard gadget carried around by millions. And Nick Fury was seen using it in the 90s to keep in contact with his superiors regarding the mysterious woman who fell from space, Carol Danvers herself. However, at the end of the movie, when Danvers departed Earth to help the surviving Skrulls find a new home, and indeed to confront the Kree for lying to her about her origins and their nefarious nature, she modified Fury's pager with space technology and handed it back to him, telling him to contact her in the event of an emergency. And we saw him do just that in the Avengers Infinity War post-credits scene. Notably, Danvers proved herself to be a very capable tech wizard, even modifying public telephones to contact Jan Rog in the distant cosmos. So she may prove herself to be a useful addition to the heroic ranks in Avengers Endgame for more than just her superpowers. She might be able to help them create some tech to help take Thanos down. When Danvers' memories were fully unlocked, courtesy of a black box recording given to her by the Skrulls, it was revealed that her actions on the day of her crash were truly heroic, and that she was prepared to do whatever it took to save herself and those she cared about. That's a characteristic that could be incredibly important when Avengers Endgame rolls into town. When Danvers unlocked her powers, realizing that the Kree had been holding her back, the awesome power that we'd been told she possessed for so long was finally shown on screen. And boy, was it impressive. Using both brute strength and incredible energy manipulation abilities, she easily disposed of Starforce, then took out an entire fleet of Kree spaceships, just after destroying a whole bunch of Kree warheads that Ronan the Accuser had unleashed. And it was a display of power never seen before by a hero in the MCU. It's very possible that this was foreshadowing what she'll do to Thanos in Avengers Endgame. Of course, the Kree, and in particular Ronan, have strong links to Thanos, as it was Lee Pace's character who was working for the Mad Titan before turning on him in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy movie. At the end of Captain Marvel, before the credits rolled, something happened that links Carol Danvers to the Avengers franchise in general. After she departed Earth, Nick Fury was on his computer writing a document about the Protector Initiative, an idea to recruit warriors like Danvers to protect the Earth in the event of more malevolent forces from other worlds trying to conquer it. But he was also reading her files at the same time, and he found a photograph of her from her days in the United States Air Force. Like a lot of pilots, Danvers' plane had her name on the side of it, along with her nickname, which was revealed to be Carol Avenger Danvers. It was at that point that Fury got the idea to change the name of the Protector Initiative to the Avenger Initiative, and the idea for a super team with the likes of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye on it was born. If that fact gets a mention in Avengers Endgame, the current surviving Avengers may be incredibly impressed by Danvers. When the credits rolled in Captain Marvel, however, the most blatant connections between it and Avengers Endgame was shown, in the form of the movie's mid-credits scene. Presumably, it was a scene lifted directly from Avengers Endgame, which wouldn't be the first time an MCU credit scene was lifted from another movie, as we saw Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, James Rhodes, and Bruce Banner in the Avengers headquarters in upstate New York. Nick Fury's pager was also shown, with the Avengers clearly having salvaged it from the site of his demise in the aforementioned Avengers Infinity War post-credits scene. In the Captain Marvel mid-credits scene, the pager had turned itself off, in spite of the fact that the Avengers had connected it to a power source. While they discussed turning it back on, due to the fact that they wanted to know who was on the other end of it, Carol Danvers appeared before them, specifically right in front of Romanoff, and simply said 2 words: "Where's Fury?" That was it, but it was enough to trigger goosebumps all over viewers' bodies, as we saw Earth's mightiest heroes interacting with the massively powerful Captain Marvel for the first time on screen. Although it's fair to say Danvers will be in for a shock when she discovers what happened to her visually impaired friend. It's worth noting that Steve Rogers had a beard in this scene. In all of the Avengers Endgame footage we've seen to date, he'd shaved that beard off. So what could it mean? Perhaps it has something to do with alternate timelines. Maybe this is where Carol Danvers' ability to time travel comes into play. Could it really be that she travels back to different points in different timelines at different points in the movie? Some in which Rogers has a beard, some in which he doesn't? It does also appear to answer a question regarding that Avengers Endgame Super Bowl spot. In the scene outside the Avengers headquarters, when Rogers, Romanoff, Rhodes, and Banner were shown looking up to the skies, there was a very noticeable gap between Banner and Rhodes, a human-sized gap. While a lot of people thought it might have been Carol Danvers they were looking up at, and that the gap would be filled by Scott Lang in the final movie, it appears that the gap will actually be filled by Danvers, which in turn means they're probably looking up at Tony Stark returning from space with Nebula. Interestingly, that scene was one in which Rogers had no beard, so if it is Danvers who's standing in that gap, the whole idea of alternate timelines potentially comes into play again. Of course, the words Captain Marvel will return in Avengers Endgame then appeared on the screen, confirming what we already knew. And that really is everything that could realistically connect the two movies. Prior to watching, it was easy to assume the Skrulls might appear in Avengers Endgame, having been posing as some of the most prominent MCU characters since we first met them. But one of the biggest twists of Captain Marvel was the fact that the green shapeshifters were actually the good guys. If anything, the Skrulls may actually assist Captain Marvel and the surviving MCU heroes in taking Thanos down, given what we now know about them, perhaps by infiltrating the Mad Titan's ranks as one of his allies, or even with the introduction of a kick-ass Super Skrull with amazing superpowers. One thing's for sure, Captain Marvel will be an extremely important character in Avengers Endgame. Whether she personally kicks Thanos' butt, assists the surviving heroes in traveling through time to undo what the Mad Titan did in Avengers Infinity War, build some helpful advanced tech, bring some allies to the fight in the form of the Skrulls, or otherwise, she's definitely going to be a big player. And we really can't wait to see it. Captain Marvel is out now, and it's fantastic. Well, Avengers Endgame hits theaters around the world at the end of April. Make sure you catch them both. Have you seen Captain Marvel yet? Can you think of any other ways the latest MCU offering connects to Avengers Endgame? Let us know in your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos just like this one. Bye for now.